will advise lawyers, you know it as well as I do, we have an adverse weather event from tomorrow evening into Wednesday morning. I don't know whether that's going to impact on anything or not.
It looks
So-
like it's going to be mostly northern El Paso County, is at least the projections that I've seen.
Okay.
So at
And I
least
don't-
as long as people can get downtown, we should be okay.
Yeah, and I don't know which of our jurors it may potentially impact, but I'll have a discussion with them about it.
Yeah. Rockies.
Yep. Gotta love Colorado. All rise for the jury, please. Jack it in. Thank you. May all be seated. Court will recall 20 CR 1358, People versus Letecia Stauch. Record should reflect the jury's is present in the courtroom. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Couple of things. We anticipate that there may be an adverse weather event sometime. I think it's supposed to be tomorrow evening into Wednesday morning. So make sure two things, you have that contact information for me, my card, so that you know how to call us if you need to. Number two, if there's an issue or you're concerned or you have a question, 719-520-SNOW, and that will tell you if there is a delay here at the courthouse. If it says that there is a 2-hour delay, be here at 10 o'clock instead of 9 o'clock. So not 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock. That should resolve that issue. I think it's primarily supposed to get more of the mountains and North Palmer Divide. I don't know how many of you may be up near that area, so just keep an eye on that. And then I have the question that you've all heard before. Has anything occurred since we were last together that causes any of you to believe you could not continue to serve as a fair and impartial juror in this case? If so, please raise your hand. No response. All right, when we took our break on Friday, we were in the midst of testimony from John Grusing. I think that's where we're resuming.
Yes, Judge.
All right. Mr. Grusing, if you would resume your seat in the witness stand, I remind you, sir, that you're still under oath.
And we don't need it just yet, Judge, but at some point here in just a minute or so, we're going to need these screens turned on as well. Good morning, Mr. Grusing. Did you have a good weekend?
I did, thank you.
Good. When we last had you on the stand, we had just played the portion of the video where you're talking with the defendant about the board that was found up in southern Douglas County. Do you remember that portion?
Yes.
And you used a word in your question, thrown, and then you got quite a challenge from the defendant. Was that consistent where she would challenge you on things that were maybe peripheral?
Yes.
Can you give examples of that and what that meant to you during this interview?
Well, she used words like she was giving us keys, and then if I wasn't correct on my guesses, which I had asked her not to have me guess since I didn't know all the answers, she would get upset if I didn't guess correctly on whether it's Gannon's location or what she was doing when her phone was off, those sorts of things.
What do you mean by guesses? And give examples of what you mean when you use the word guesses.
So, especially during this later part of the interview when I was asking her about the blood, more than once she would say that if I knew enough about this investigation, I should be able to say either where Gannon is or more details about what was going on that I couldn't guess too. So it was an effective way really for her to not answer my question and tell me that she knew things I didn't know.
Did that indicate to you fairly high intellect?
It did, and forward thinking and that she knew that the questions that I was asking her would require a difficult answer. And so she was requiring the same out of me, something that was actually impossible for me to answer because I didn't know what she knew.
And as it relates to that, are you talking about Gannon's location at this particular time?
Yes.
Okay. Just after that portion of video where we were watching you asking her about the board with blood being found up in southern Douglas County, did you ask her, or I guess confront her with other pieces of evidence as well?
Yes.
All right, so the next section we're gonna play is a shorter section. It's at 4 hours, 7 minutes and 13 seconds through 4 hours, 10 minutes and 13 seconds.
Do you know why I told you about that? I normally don't do this, tell everybody all the evidence against them. Why do you think?
I don't know.
Because I think if you're to weigh this on, there's enough probable cause, a judge in Colorado Springs in El Paso has signed a probable cause warrant for first-degree murder. And all this evidence, and I'm telling you about the ones that I know about, and that's before you do, you know, all the phone stuff, et cetera, and then versus you taking a chance that you're gonna get out. It's
I'm not
nothing.
taking a chance for nothing because I didn't
It's not.
do anything, sir. Okay, sir.
If you say you didn't do anything, do you know what an innocent
Okay.
person would do? I have had plenty of innocent people sitting in your chair. Do you know what an innocent person would do? They would be freaking out.
No.
You are not freaking
Yeah,
out.
right. You think I haven't freaked out?
I heard
for,
you
like,
freak out on the
days?
phone one time.
Think I haven't freaked out for days? You can't judge the way I freak
No.
something out one way and another way.
I have had the wrong person in a room like this before,
Okay.
and trust me, if they had any idea who
Okay.
did it, they would tell me.
Okay, well, I
That
guess-
makes no sense.
I guess
And no
if that's
jury
what
will
you're-
buy, no
okay.
jury's gonna buy
Okay.
that you sit here with an answer that somebody else took Gannon, that all this head wound and all this stuff happened in there. Do you think I don't know what I'm talking about?
Sir, I never question anything.
Well,
that
you
is in
must,
me. No, I
because you're
didn't.
taking a huge chance, Letecia.
Sir, I'm not taking any chance
How are you not taking a
because
chance?
I know the man upstairs knows I did not do anything.
Well, he's not gonna be on the jury.
Okay. All right, we're not gonna go there with that. We're not gonna go
We're
there.
going to sensible people who we're going to present evidence in front of.
Let me tell you what, there's a higher power.
There
That
is.
higher power
Yes.
will make sure.
I believe in the higher power as well.
I'm glad you did. That really makes me feel a lot better. It really does. I'm serious. You know,
But Letecia, if this comes down to common sense,
I do have.
and these
common-
prosecutors, I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about who you're gonna be sitting in front of.
Okay.
And if you're gonna take a chance that they're not gonna listen to all this evidence, all this blood, all these stories that you told about Gannon, and that you have the key to finding him and you don't do it, there's nobody else to prosecute.
Okay.
Why won't you go there?
Why am I, what else am I gonna say?
The easiest thing to tell me is the last time you saw Gannon.
I've already told you I'm not.
But then what do I need to go through again the other things that might have happened to Gannon? Where did you gently place Gannon?
What?
I don't know how to phrase it.
What are you talking about?
I don't know, because I don't know where he is. If you want me to use a different verb or whatever, I'm struggling.
I've got it paused at 4 hours, 10 minutes and 13 seconds. Why have you shifted tactics here to trying to now find Gannon's location as to getting descriptions of what happened to him?
Well, she seems to be more reluctant to answer questions now. And she showed me with the particle board. She got upset when I said she threw it. And as I said earlier, she gets upset if I guess. So I tried different verbs like placing it, setting it, those sorts of things. And then she will settle back down. So that's why I'm trying different ways to get her to communicate to me any other clue that might have happened with Gannon. So I'm just trying yet a different tactic again.
Including clues potentially towards his location?
Yes.
Okay. When you go down this particular path of talking about last place that she may have seen Gannon, did she give you any keys that helped find Gannon?
No, and I had already asked her in the previous section who the last person was with Gannon, since she was saying it wasn't her. We had been through the angel routine, and then I was trying to see if she would push it to anybody else, and she's not. So since she's not pushing it to anybody else, she's basically saying it's her. So I just want to her to say where she last saw him, whether it was in the house, whether it was at the Petco, whether it was at Palmer Lake, to give us some sort of clue of her last sighting of him.
You made a statement in that section that you don't normally tell people that you're interviewing about all of the evidence. One, why do you not typically do that?
We don't typically do that because we don't want the defendant or whoever we're in front of to testify falsely to something in case we give them too much evidence and then they say something they didn't do. Also, we don't want them to know what we know because I want their statement to be pure in that they're not just repeating what I say. With this interview, we had gone far enough to where we would do something called the collaborative interview, to where we bring the person in with us and we share as much as we can to try to get them to collaborate and cooperate with us, since I'm working towards a solution and I'm trying to bring her in almost as an investigator to help me find out what happened to Gannon. So the more facts that I introduce to her slowly, I'm hoping that she'll start cooperating with me.
So you anticipated my follow-up question is why were you doing that in this case, but you just answered that. As this discussion sort of develops, does she then talk about faith in God and that kind of thing?
She does.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and play that. It's basically from this point forward to 4 hours, 14 minutes, and 6 seconds.
Letecia, this is not about you.
I didn't
You're
make
the
it
one
that
caught
way.
up in it, though. You're the one with all the evidence stacked
Okay.
against you.
Okay, well,
Help yourself right now.
okay, so.
Why would you not?
How am I supposed to know?
Just tell me what happened.
So what happened before? I don't know.
The way you
So I
described,
have to stand up for a moment.
absolutely. The wounds that you described to him don't even come close
Okay,
to the
okay,
blood
then,
in the
then
house.
if that's what you think, then
No, it's
sir.
not.
Okay,
This is what people that do this for a living tell me.
okay,
Again, I wasn't there, but a little gash on his head
okay, sir.
doesn't explain at all that stuff that's in there.
Okay.
But do you want to go with that? Because when you walk out of here, the last thing on record you're going to have is what you told me. And I would love to be your storyteller.
Okay.
I would love to tell the true story. It will help you. You believe in that higher power you
Oh,
said?
I do. That's why. You
What
wanna know
about the
why?
truth? Do you
wanna know-
study the truth?
You want to know why I'm not sitting here like going crazy, freaking out, putting on an emotional show like I've seen people involved in this situation put on fake cries and all that? Because I know God knows.
Okay.
I mean,
But what about the truth? You study the same Bible, the same God. It tells a lot about truth in there, and you have not told many truths in this whole thing.
well, I don't know that. Guess what? But let me tell you what happened this morning when I woke up. When I woke up this morning, I watched a story about Ron Gibbons. So he started this show. He ended up like getting talked down to, bullied online, treated like crap, accused of things he didn't do. And that's where he went to the accusation part. And so he went down this whole trail talking about how accusation, how this did to him, what he had to go through, and all that.
Okay.
But in the end, he kept his faith in Jesus Christ. You know about the story of Paul, you know about Saul in the Bible. Okay, I can walk you through a lot in the Bible. If you know what I'm talking about. So he turned those accusations into just keeping steadfast and staying strong, and to believing God's going to do this, and keeping whatever, because, in the Bible, they persecuted a lot of Christians, right? A lot of them for things they didn't do right.
Sure.
But, there's a lot of stories where God made sure they were okay. So when I woke up this morning, I literally decided, God, you can take this, and you can either A, bring Gannon home, bring him to the front step, drop him off, so that I can please never have to worry about this again.
Right.
Or you can let me stay focused on believing in you, as in him, and just the truth will come out. And it's okay, because I don't want to sit here and accuse all these people of whatever. I'm not going to turn those same accusations against them for saying this and saying that, not believing this, not believing that. I'm just going to just sit there and say, I know I did not hurt Gannon.
With that, I get,
So I've got it paused at 4 hours, 14 minutes and 6 seconds. Did you go on from this basically to then try to get her to tell you more details about when she last saw Gannon?
Yes.
All right, so we're going to jump to that section at 4 hours, 17 minutes and 18 seconds. And we will play through 4 hours, 20 minutes and 3 seconds.
go a different way. If you did something bad to Gannon.
I did
Now,
not.
I'm saying we go if. If you did something bad to Gannon, could you ever admit it? No, I'm saying,
I'm not going to go.
this is not a trick.
But I'm not going to go answer that question, because I did not do anything bad.
The reason why I ask you that is the people that I've worked with are actually put in prison for life. I've told them, and I've told people, the families of these victims, I said, if you put Harold in a room and you take everybody else out, we have absolute evidence that he pushed his wife off a cliff and that he dropped a car on his other wife, and he was convicted. I said, even if you clear everybody out and you just have Harold in a mirror, Harold was a God follower, Christ Christian like you are. I said he could never admit that he did that to either wife.
Well, I'm sorry that, what's his name, Harold? Harold is that type of person, because a God follower, I'm not judging him, I'm saying, in order for you, you have to repent your sins to God, okay? And you have to put yourself there. And in order to repent your sins to God, it means also you have to lay them all down on the cross. And like, my sins are laid down, and it is not involving hurting, harming, killing you. So I'm sorry that Harold or whatever his name is has like a different approach.
Well, I think you have probably a more serious problem than Harold does. You know where an 11-year-old is, and I am here telling you we could go find him, and you are not giving us his location, alive or dead. So what Harold did was push a 50-year-old woman off the cliff. It was an awful thing, and the parents hated losing Tony. But Tony had lived a full life, as full as you can till 50. It was still tragic. Gannon's 11. Gannon.
That doesn't matter age, yeah, you're right. It's tragic, right?
Yeah.
You just said
And
that.
if you had the
Tragic.
answer, you would give it to us.
I don't know where he is.
But you won't answer my question about the last time you saw him.
Listen, sir, anything I say to you, you're not going to listen to me. You're going to take.
I'm not going to twist things, Letecia.
To be honest with you, I can give you speculation.
Okay, give
like
me
with everyone
speculation.
else.
Please.
I can give you
I'll take
speculation.
speculation.
Speculation is Gannon is alive. Speculation is Gannon is with someone who is not willing to hurt him until they get something they want.
Why wouldn't they make a demand then? Why would they hold an 11-year-old kid? That's more sadistic.
So as we talked about, we stopped it at 4 hours, 20 minutes and 3 seconds. Why did you start this section out with asking, could she admit it? What was in your mind when you asked that question?
When it's a familial matter and someone that you really care about is the person that you've harmed. I haven't yet had someone who's admitted to me that they were responsible for that harm or homicide.
And so that's why you were asking that particular question?
Yes.
Okay. And then does it devolve back into now he's been kidnapped by some group.
Yes,
All right. Did you then confront her again about the blood on the wall?
yes,
Did she bring up a miscarriage that she apparently had had sometime prior?
she does.
All right, let's watch that section. It starts at 4 hours, 21 minutes and 47 seconds and goes through 4 hours, 23 minutes and 47 seconds.
And Your Honor, could Mr. Allen and I
All right.
All right.
Mr. Allen?
Yes, thank you, Judge. Picking up from where we left off, we were going to jump to the confrontation about blood on the wall and being compared to a miscarriage, and it's going to jump to 4 hours, 21 minutes, and 47 seconds. And we will play through 4 hours, 23 minutes, and 47 seconds. So exactly 2 minutes worth of video.
If you had nothing to do with harming Gannon, why would you clean up the blood that's on the wall?
So you're saying you've never had anything happen in your house and you cleaned it up? Never. Like, you've never had, like,
Why would you
razor,
cut out the carpet?
nosebleeds? The carpet?
Mhm.
Because I was going to get more carpet. It doesn't, the carpet has nothing to do with cutting it out. It's getting smell. It stunk. I couldn't breathe. None of us could breathe.
Did you say that Lena helped you clean up some of the blood on the wall?
Lena always helps us clean up everything. Lena helped us clean up the light switch. Lena helped us clean up when Gannon had a nosebleed. Okay?
But for this occasion, she helped with that.
Now you're going to walk me back through what we've already talked about. So you're now going to go be like, oh, an 8-year-old this and an 8-year-old that. Come on. There was all the time. Gannon was bleeding all the time. He'd have a nosebleed randomly at the drop of a dime. He'd bite his fingers, bleed all the time.
Would it help if I gave you a picture of the wall of what all showed up on it?
Sir, that's not going to get me to say anything to you because I didn't do anything.
But what I'm trying to appeal to, though, is again, you weighing your options right now before we're gone,
Sir,
because you're taking a big risk, Letecia.
sir, I believe in higher power. And that higher power is going to show the entire world. And when it does, I would never have to work a day in my life again. And that's going to happen. Guaranteed. Because I did not hurt, I did not dispose, kill, whatever you want to call these things that you're going to name out as verbs.
So why did you confront her with the blood cleanup and, for instance, the carpet cutout?
We had talked about it before, but this is what I'm left with to speak with her about, is the evidence in the case to see if she'll move from where she was.
Were you trying to give her an opening to give you more details?
Yes, and I don't remember if I had brought up before Lena's participation in this, but I wanted to see.
Lena, you mean?
Yeah, Lena's participation, and to see how she would react to that.
Again, is it consistent throughout the interview that she would resist those opportunities when it related to the specifics of the crime itself?
Yes, and again, she said she sees the pathway where these questions would be going, and she says she's not going to go there.
Appreciating where you want to get to.
Correct.
From your perception, was that logical thought process?
Very.
Shortly after this portion of the video, do you confront her with trying to get information about, hey, there's a boy out there. Help me find him. Help me get him home.
Yes.
Let's jump to that section. 4 hours, 24 minutes, and 29 seconds. And we will play through 4 hours, 32 minutes, and 50 seconds. So about 8 minutes. Judge, I'm not sure if you want to allow Mr. Grusing to step down during this 8-minute portion.
Thanks.
So starting it at 4 hours, 24 minutes, and 29 seconds.
And about why would you act like this when there's a boy out there?
I want Gannon home.
Then tell me how to do it.
I want to help you. I don't know. I don't.
But see, that's where easy questions should be easy to answer.
I just said I don't know. That's an easy answer.
The easy answer is tell me the very last time you laid eyes on him. Where was he? Was he laying down? Was he standing up? Was he sitting? Was he walking to a car? Where was, Give me your very last image of Gannon. That's an easy question. You have to remember your last image of Gannon. Letecia. What was he doing? Why would you not answer that?
Because I've given it here.
No, you haven't told me exactly what you saw when you saw him for the very last time. Did you see the back of his head? Did you see his face? What was his expression? Did he say goodbye to you? Tell me of your last, you know, I wish I could see in your head right now. Your very last image is there, but you won't tell me. Why won't you tell me?
Because it's nothing bad to
Well,
tell
then
you.
tell me. If it's nothing bad, you would tell me. Image of Gannon.
I don't
Please.
have any bad images again.
I didn't say it was bad.
I
I'm
don't
just
have
asking,
any.
what's the very last picture of seeing Gannon alive or not alive that you have in your brain?
He is alive. I'm not
Then
going to say
tell me the last time you saw him. What did you see? Letecia, like you said earlier,
Okay.
being
so
a good
keep saying-
person, you didn't hurt him, you didn't do all this. I'm repeating it back to you. Why could you not tell me then? If that all that is true, you know the last time you saw him. What would that hurt to tell me? Do you kind of think?
No, I don't.
Well, then tell me.
I don't need any kinds of.
What is wrong with that question?
There's nothing wrong with the question. I've already made it clear that I wasn't going to answer more questions
You've never answered this one.
because you have already predetermined what you want in your brain along with everyone else.
Why do you care about what's in my brain?
So you just asked me about mine.
Yeah, because your brain's the only one that counts here. It doesn't matter what's in my brain. The very last time you saw Gannon, where was he? What was he doing?
Did y'all put a report out?
There's no need to put it. Can you please answer that?
You automatically have a predetermined thing in your brain.
If you give me something else, I'll go
Yeah,
there.
no, wow.
Why do you care about my brain, Letecia? Yours is the one that matters. What's the last thing you
I'm
saw?
gonna tell you one more time. I did not hurt.
I didn't ask
harm,
that.
do
I did not
anything
ask
wrong.
that. I don't care. What is the last
I
image you
mean,
have?
checked all these places I've been.
Why don't you answer that question?
Why don't you
I'm just
answer me?
curious.
Have you checked all these places I've been and where was Gannon? Was he there? Doesn't that have to like sneak in the brain for a little bit to say?
You're gonna live with
Gannon's
it for the
story.
rest of your life, Letecia. Why don't you tell me today?
I'm not living with anything horrible in my brain. I'm not.
Okay, well then it should be an easy question.
I've given you the answer.
Of the last time you saw him? No, you haven't. But I'm afraid it's not the image that you want to be left
Oh,
with.
what? Sir, that's not going to convince me to say something that I didn't do.
Okay, then maybe it is the image. Then tell me. Why else would you not tell me?
Because you keep going with the same question, and if you've already
And you won't answer it.
but you predetermined yourself.
No.
When I thought you were going to help, that was different. But you predetermined yourself.
You didn't
what
tell
to
me
say.
what the last thing you saw was, even with your answer there. And that's fine. If you want to tell me the thing with Angel, I
I'm
don't
not going
care.
to say anything other than saying, it will shock everyone. But I will promise you, I won't have to worry about nothing the rest of my life because I didn't do it.
But you did. What's going to come out? That you didn't tell the FBI who took Gannon, if that's your deal? How is that going to shock everybody?
Okay. Okay, sir. Okay.
I didn't think you were guilty until you don't answer the last time you saw him.
Sir,
I
you
have-
came in this
listen.
morning
No, I did not.
and you automatically thought that. You automatically thought that already.
I was willing to listen if you were going to give me evidence to the contrary. But I have talked to many people who have seen someone disappear It never goes away. That last image. Is
Oh,
gone.
well.
It
you
never
know,
goes away, and you've got it in your mind, and you won't tell me.
Right,
There's only one
is-
reason you won't tell me.
you're right. People do have, when people do bad things, their images stay in their brain. You're right.
Bad or good. A lot of these dads didn't know when the last time they were going to see their daughter.
I mean,
And they still remember it like it was yesterday, 14 years
oh
later.
yeah,
You remember the last time you saw Gannon.
yeah.
So tell me what you saw.
Nothing negative.
So tell me what you saw.
I saw nothing negative. I saw nothing again.
You're telling me nothing. You're saying nothing.
Okay.
Just tell me what you did see, the positive.
Winning.
Where was he? Was he
No,
standing?
you said, tell me what I see. I'm just gonna tell you
Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt
how
you.
Gannon was,
Okay,
okay? Gannon was fine. Gannon, nothing was wrong with him. Gannon was happy. Gannon is my favorite stepchild. My favorite. I know everybody says they have favorites and things like that, or they say not really necessarily favored or whatever, but he was.
do you remember how we
He
talked earlier?
definitely is.
Remember how we
Always.
talked earlier about when I ask you a question and you go around?
I'm not answering that question
You're
for you.
saying, you're
because
giving me qualities of Gannon. You're not saying what
I'm
you
not-
saw.
I'm
You're
not,
saying he's a
sir.
favorite stepson.
sir,
What did you see?
sir.
Was he standing or sitting?
I didn't do anything to Gannon.
I didn't say you did. I
Okay.
said your last memory.
Okay, well, I didn't do anything to Gannon, so.
Do you have it in your mind right now?
Yep.
Seeing him for the last time.
Well, it's not gonna be the last time that I see him.
The last time you saw him. Do
It's
you
not
have
gonna be
that?
the last
Do
time
you
I
have
see him.
that picture in your mind?
Sure.
Yes or no?
I know you're really good at what you do. I appreciate that. I know that, but I didn't do this. This is
But why
why.
don't you tell me the answer to that question?
Because you
It's
want,
not-
I'm not, why would
I'm
I
not con-
answer questions for you?
But that is not a hard question to answer. I'm not saying, did you kill him? I'm not saying, did you put him in a forest? I'm not saying, did you put him in a dumpster? This is just your last image. You've got to have it.
My images are happy lives. That's what it will
That's not
always
what you
be.
see in your brain.
Okay, well, see, now you know my brain.
Yes, I know.
Okay.
You have an image of the last time you saw Gannon.
Okay.
If you didn't hurt him, why won't you tell me?
I already told you I didn't hurt it.
I know, but if you didn't, why would that image be a problem for you?
No, I don't have a problem with anything.
Then tell me. I'm not accusing you of anything, Letecia. Just tell me the last time you saw him.
At the very beginning, I'm sorry.
Not up yet.
Oh.
You can go ahead.
I'm gonna ask the empty chair, Judge.
Okay.
The voice from behind me would have been interesting. Mr. Grusing, at the very beginning of this portion of the video, you start out with easy questions and easy answers. What was your purpose of that statement?
What do you mean? Easy questions, easy answers?
Well, easy questions should be easy to answer, basically.
Yeah, again, if she's saying that she's innocent of this, then the questions that I'm asking should be very easy for her to answer.
Did she give you any of these easy answers?
No.
Again, here, it appears that you're sort of pushing back when she's saying, well, what's in your mind? Did she appear to be throughout this entire interview preoccupied with what other people were thinking about her?
Yes, and that was consistent with the phone calls. And what I'm trying to keep her from doing is manipulating her answer to see what I want to hear. I just want to hear what she knows to be true.
This whole issue about did you all put out a reward, that kind of stuff. This entire section, was this another example of her deflecting away from the thrust of information you're trying to gather?
Yes.
Right after this, does she then actually challenge you about, are you going to find Gannon?
Yes.
All right, let's watch that portion. Basically, from this section on through 4 hours, 35 minutes and 56 seconds. So just a couple minutes. So if you're okay sitting there so I don't ask an empty chair questions.
This is an easy question compared to all the other ones we've done.
Oh,
Please.
Are you gonna find him?
Yes.
Well, I would rather spend our time doing that because I don't have him. I didn't do anything with him, to him, or hurt him.
Okay.
And I appreciate all your work.
You
and
can
I'm
help
listening
us
to you.
more than anybody on this planet. You can help me right now find Gannon. Let's start with the one question I asked you.
And I don't
Why?
trust anymore for you because
Well, just tell me why you don't want to answer that.
I've already, it doesn't matter. I can tell you I last saw Gannon when I went to the store this morning, and it could be legit true, and you would still be like, he was not at the store. I mean,
I will be able to tell if you'd say what he's wearing, or not even what he's wearing, how he was walking, you will remember this. And just you not answering it means you remember it.
no, it doesn't.
Yes, it does.
Okay, well, I'm glad that you now are a psychologist.
No, it's behavior analysis.
Okay, good. I'm glad you have behavior analysis. Okay. I appreciate you having me here. What else do you want me to say or do? I mean, what else?
So you don't want to answer that one.
I don't want to tell you anything else because
Why?
I
If it helps find Gannon, why would you not tell?
you already predetermined.
I didn't say you
What
heard him
you
or
think-
anything. I think you know where he is, though.
You already predetermined this. You have.
The scene does tell the story,
Okay,
yes.
so if that's your story, then I'm not gonna keep saying anything because I know that is not the case. So if I keep saying anything to you, you're just gonna keep blah 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 about it, and I've been nothing but respectful to you. So I'm trying to remain respectful to you overall because I don't have any disrespect for you. I don't treat people like that. But putting me in a situation where I'm like saying to you, I cannot say anything else because you've expressed you predetermined what you think. You've already done that. So no matter what I say, I legit could take you right to Gannon and he would be standing there and you would still say to me, well, that's not him. Or you would say something else. Just
Do you know how
because
good that would be for you?
Oh, trust me. Yes.
Then why do you care what I
You know
think?
how good that would be for me? Absolutely.
Why do you care what I think? You should not care at all what I think. You said I wouldn't think. If you could take us to Gannon right now, that
So this idea where she's saying she doesn't have him, did you later learn that that was actually a true statement
Yes,
because of where Gannon was ultimately found?
correct.
Later on in this interview, did you confront her with her ability to dodge questions and spin stories?
Yes.
All right, let's jump to that section at 4 hours and 39 minutes and 33 seconds. Bless you. And we will play through 4 hours and 46 minutes and 21 seconds. So about 7 minutes if if he's allowed to come down, Judge.
Up to him.
I think I can handle it this time.
Okay.
you got away with spinning stories and dodging questions your whole life.
Because now you know me my whole life.
I can look back a little bit. I don't know you when you were 5 or 13 or 16. But I think something bad happened and you've been able to avoid trouble. But that doesn't happen in this case.
Okay, sir.
These stories that you told are much worse for you than if you had just said, the best thing you could have said is, Gannon just went and that's it. I'm not saying anything else.
Mm-hmm.
But you describing all these injuries to him, even to us today, is awful.
Injuries, but it's not injuries like that.
Yes, you talked about it. His head.
There's this all the
Yeah.
time. You raise children and they never got hurt. Like they never.
Not all on the last day they're seen
No,
alive.
that's not what it was. You're making it out to be like some whatever. That's not even how it was.
Tell me how it was then.
Gannon and I are very close. Okay.
But see, that's what you don't do. You say generalizations when I ask you, how was it? And
Why? I don't even know what
that-
you're asking me.
The injury that caused that pool in the corner. It's not a little scratch on his
Okay, why
head.
don't you test it and see what day it came from? If that's what you're telling me, why don't you test it and see what day?
So it didn't happen on Monday.
No, I'm
It happened on
asking you.
Saturday.
I'm asking you. You are the one who are telling me, no matter what I say, you're telling me it's your way or no way. So why don't you tell me?
Well, I'm
what day
saying
it
it's a significant enough injury that he was not gonna be normal after that.
was?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
That's what they told me.
Okay, well, that is awful that people aren't normal after anything like that.
It's a significant
Because I had
injury.
puddles of blood. I remember that I had
We're
puddles
not
of
talking
blood
about you, we're talking
I
about
know.
11 years.
that I did, and there was no significant injury that I died.
Do you not find that coincidental?
Right.
The
What?
blood on the wall and by his bed.
The
and on
blood,
mattress.
the blood that you or your team allowed people to be in the house.
That has no
Okay.
bearing on it.
Okay, well, if it doesn't, then okay.
It doesn't.
Okay, so, okay. Maybe check one of them.
Are you ready to tell me?
Maybe check one of them. Because
I bet you they can tell me the last time they saw Gannon,
that's
even
not-
though it was
that's not
months
the
before.
question.
I bet Al can tell you the last time he saw Gannon, even though he didn't know that was gonna be the last time. I guarantee you, he's got an image of Gannon. Did you were the last one with him, Letecia?
Okay.
What do I need to say to help you? I'm serious.
You do not want to help me.
Yes, I do.
No, you don't. You want me to tell you what you want to hear. That's what you want.
No,
Yes.
I have never wanted people to tell me what I want to hear. If it doesn't lead me to finding Gannon or the truth of this matter, I could care less what it is. Like I said, most of the time, I'm wrong. I have to have people like you tell me the truth. You didn't have anything to hide. You tell me your last
Don't
image of me.
have anything to hide.
Then tell me. That's not a guilt or innocence question. Just your last image of Gannon. Okay, now you don't have to tell me the last time you saw him, just your last image in your head.
Hmm.
What's the last image in your head you have of him? No?
Um,
Or was he?
Yeah, you said that's image. That's the
I mean,
image.
was he
gave you.
sitting? Is he standing? Is he laying down? What's he doing?
Walking
Towards you or away from you?
away.
Do you have any questions for me?
Hmm?
Any questions for me? No, that's for you. Have I not asked you a question that I should be asking you? Anything? I don't have the answers to that. No, feelings that I can't talk about right now. No, I can understand
No,
that. Anything?
they were.
Is there anything I need to ask you that I haven't?
Mhm.
Let's see if, I don't think they'll need anything.
Can I go to the bathroom?
Sure.
Well,
Let's pause now at 4 hours, 46 minutes and 21 seconds. As to when you both leave the room and are off camera, what happened outside in the hallway?
I believe she went to the bathroom.
Do you then come back into the room with her?
We might have opened the door, but I don't think we do any more interviews in this room.
Okay. Why'd you go down this path of confronting her with dodging questions and spinning stories?
We had talked about it before, and she had told me that she has done that in the past, as far as talking in circles, dodging questions, and I just wanted to bring that back around. Something that she had told me to see if we could go straight forward just once with this last image question I had.
Did she ever give you a straightforward answer to the last image in her head?
No,
Throughout this long interview, did she exhibit that same sort of trait of dodging questions or spinning stories?
yes,
That's appeared to you in your perception to be a calculated move on her part.
yes,
Your final contact with her is back in this room, and it starts at 4:47:43 and then goes through 4:49:17. We'll jump to that now.
T-shirt. And here, like I said, you're gonna have to go to, whatever jail that holds you in. Colorado's got the warrant, so they're gonna transport you.
Okay.
You have anything else for me? I think we've talked a lot today, but if you have something you want to say, I'll sit here for another 4 hours.
Where's the one?
The warrant's in the system. It's in the, NCIC is what they call it. That's what they picked you up on today, was the arrest warrant.
Okay.
So you're gonna be going back there. Anything else? First degree murder for Gannon Stauch. That's what I was trying to come in here with you to help you. If we find Gannon, that makes a big difference. We'll let you go. If he's alive, you might as well try it. I can't speak for the district attorney. I'm not an attorney. I'm an investigator. If he's alive and you can get us Gannon, yes. Good things will happen to you today versus getting shipped back to Colorado.
Can I talk to you about that?
So we're now at the end of that recorded interview, essentially. Is she trying to have another off-camera discussion with you?
yes,
Did you in fact have a short discussion with her off camera?
yes.
What happened in that discussion?
Right outside the door, we now had police officers waiting to transport. So there were probably 4 or 5 law enforcement around us. And she said something in a small voice about North Carolina that I couldn't hear. And I asked her to repeat it. And she said that she and I should go to North Carolina. And I asked her, is Gannon in North Carolina? And she didn't answer.
Was that basically the extent of that interaction?
Yes, what I recall.
Okay. In looking back at your, even your recorded phone calls that we've heard throughout this trial and in this long interview, are there any, I guess, regrets that you have as to your approaches, ways that you may have been able to get more information about what happened again?
She brought up Quincy Brown to me, I think within an hour or so of our interview. And then she said if something to the effect of if I wasn't going to talk about that, then it wasn't any use going forward. And in looking at the phone calls with Al, that's where she described most of Gannon's injuries, or a lot of them. And looking back and playing it through, maybe I should have gone more down the Quincy Brown angle to see if she would have been willing to disclose more things. That's the only thing I can think of.
The short portions that we didn't play through your direct examination here, were there any surprises in those portions that are different from the stuff that we saw in the video that we did watch?
No.
Did she act consistently in those portions to what we saw here?
Yes.
You, in two different sections that we watched, you delved into mental health questions. Do you remember those?
Yes.
Throughout all of your interaction with her, both through those recorded phone calls and in this interview, did she ever express any history with severe mental health issues, diseases, defects, anything like that?
She did not.
Did she ever talk about sexual abuse that she allegedly suffered as a child?
No.
Did she ever point to specific people in her life, family, that she alleged carried out sexual abuse against her?
No.
Did she ever give you any descriptions of any commitments to hospitals?
No.
Did she appear to understand the gravity of the situation when you were talking with her? That this is a first-degree murder charge?
Very well.
In what ways were you able to develop that idea?
Well, as I said earlier, she's able to see where different lines of questioning go and what would be damaging for her to answer truthfully. So, whether we're talking about evidence in the case or what happened to Gannon or her role or involvement, she stops that line of questioning before it goes down something that would be damning towards her in testimony.
So are you saying resisting giving more incriminating statements about the crime itself?
Correct.
Did that appear to be a calculated move on her part?
Yes.
Throughout your entire interaction with her, both through the consensual recorded phone calls and this long interview, did you ever observe her to change personalities?
No.
Did she ever talk in a Spanish accent?
No.
Did she ever demand to be called any other names besides the name that you knew her as?
No.
Did she ever use the name Taylor,
No.
Jasmine,
No.
Harmony,
No.
Christina,
No.
Little Lucia,
No.
Maria Sanchez?
No.
May I have just a moment, Your Honor?
You may.
And that's all I have. I just need to disconnect this computer from here so that Mr. Cook
Right.
has a clean podium.
Okay.
And you can, yeah, I was going to say turn off the screen if you'd like.
Mr. Cook, cross-examination?
Thank you. Mr. Grusin, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Good. Thank you.
So how long did you work for the FBI?
A few months short of 25 years.
25 years? Were you always in the Colorado office, or were you like a lot of other agents early in your career, you were in different states?
Always Colorado.
Always, okay. And at one point near the end of the interview, Miss Stauch referred to you as something and you corrected herself. You corrected her and said you're a behavior analysis.
She said something like, I'm a psychologist.
Yeah.
And I said, no, I'm in behavior analysis.
Okay. And is that generally what you did throughout the majority of your career?
No.
Okay. What else were your other assignments? And I know you already told Mr. Allen this, but I have to hear things a few times before they sink
No
in.
worries. Yeah, so I was a special agent, and I was assigned to the criminal side for the FBI. There's a terrorism side or counterintelligence and a criminal side. And for my last 23 years, I was a criminal agent for them. So I was never a supervisor, it would be similar to being a detective for a local police department.
Okay. Now, you told Ms. Stout during the interview that you had been contacted by the main office for the FBI and told to go do this interview with her in South Carolina. Is that correct?
Yes, I think I told her, I was asked by the Colorado Springs office to come investigate initially and then also to go out to South Carolina.
Okay. Whose decision was it to you be the one that goes in and does this almost 5-hour interview?
I think it was up in the air early, whether it would be El Paso investigator and myself or just myself. And I don't remember how it came just to be me, but it ended up just being me.
Okay. And have you done a lot of these interviews over your career?
Yes.
Now, before we got into the audio videotape interview, we were listening to some additional phone calls with Gannon's father and Miss Stout.
Yes.
Okay. And do you recall in one of these interviews, it looks like it was February 19th, 2020. It began about 12:10 p.m. Do you recall that interview that was recorded?
Yes, briefly.
Okay. And were you there for that one?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember at the end of that conversation, it said Letecia said that her guess would be that Gannon was not in Colorado. When asked how she knew, she said, quote, because Tisha didn't hurt him, didn't dispose of him or anything like that, okay? It goes on, so Tisha was in Colorado with nothing, and you guys have run up all these places where y'all think I did or whatever, and you haven't found Gannon. Do you recall her at one point referring to herself as Tisha?
I do.
Okay. Now, generally, somebody in that conversation would say I, but in this situation, she's referring to herself in the third person.
Correct.
Okay. Did you find that a little bit off?
Not really.
Okay. Well, what if I started questioning you right here instead of saying, I've got a couple questions for you, Mr. Grusing? What if I said, Mr. Cook has a couple questions for you, Mr. Grusing? Mr. Cook would like to proceed. Would that be a little bit off?
It depends on who you are and how well I knew you.
So it'd be kind of strange if I was up here cross-examining you and I was using the third person to refer to myself.
It would be unusual, yes.
Mr. Cook has some more questions for you.
Sounds good.
Couldn't help it. Now, with respect to the Google searches we talked about, or you talked about with Letecia, I don't like my stepson, you recall those and
I do.
discussing that with Mr. Allen. Were you able to pull up the content that was retrieved during these searches, or what is the scope of what information you were able to pull up in this metadata or whatever it is?
So yeah, I was quite a bit removed from that. We had a computer specialist that was looking into her phone and would send us sanitized results.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you didn't see what the kickback was or
That's correct.
anything. You just could see the search. Okay. And you don't know when these searches were made.
I don't.
correct? Okay, and that's not because you didn't look, it's just because that information was not saved.
Yeah, I was told they didn't know when you're talking about when her actual search happened on her phone?
Yeah, when she, Googled in, I don't like my stepson, what do I do about it? Like if that was in 2018 or was it,
Correct. Yeah, it was no timestamp date was given to me for those searches.
okay. So some of these searches could have been January 27th of 2020, and some of them could have been in 2018, or some of them could have been actually after January 27th.
Correct.
But before the phone was seized.
Yes.
Okay. Are you aware of any searches coming back saying, what do I do if I don't like my stepson? And the answer being, stab him 17 times, plunge and force, strike him 4 times in the head and shoot him in the head?
No.
That'd be some pretty bad advice, wouldn't it?
That would not be good advice. You're right.
Now, sometimes, how many different stories did Miss Stout tell? I hear at one point you said you were asking her on the video and told her that she's told you about 7 different stories. Do you recall that?
Yeah, I think I was throwing out an approximate number.
Okay. And then Mr. Allen asked you one time, and he said you can't even count how many stories she gave.
Yes, because he brought up variations of stories, which would legitimately count as another story. So,
Okay.
yeah.
But we're not talking about an infinite number of stories. I mean, you could go back and
Correct. We
basically
could
there
count
was-
them up.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there were, between 5 and 10 main theme stories we're dealing with.
That sounds correct.
And one interview, something may change a little bit, but there was 5 to 10 main theme stories.
Sounds right.
Okay. Now, during some of the interviews, Miss Stauch or Letecia, she seemed like she made a lot of eye contact, was pretty engaged near the beginning. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Okay. And then there was a part for about 30 minutes or so in the middle where she didn't even look up. She hung her head the whole time. Do you recall that part?
Yes.
And her voice was a lot lower. You could hardly even hear her. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Is almost 5 hours a long time to be in an interview room like that?
It just depends on the situation.
What was your goal when you went into this interview room with Letecia? Was it to find out who Gannon was? Was it to get a confession to be used to prosecute her later? Both? I mean, what was the actual game plan when you went in?
Yeah, probably both. I would say primarily is to find what happened to Gannon. And as she had spoken with Al on the phone, that she had given hints or clues. And even if we were to get some of those, that would be worth the 5 hours.
And would you say that you came away from this interview as far as getting the confession and being able to find Gannon more or less empty-handed?
It went about as I expected it would.
And you weren't able to get enough information or any information out to be able to locate Gannon?
That's correct.
Can I have just a second, Your Honor?
Me?
I think that's all I have. Thank you.
You
Thank you,
ready?
Mr. Grusin.
Thank you.
Mr. Grusing, you were asked about the references that the defendant used third person to say her name.
Yes,
Have you been around other people who are self-absorbed who also talk about themselves in the third person?
I have.
Does that indicate in your mind any concerns about mental health capacity?
No,
Did that cause you any concern about this defendant as to her mental health capacity?
it did not.
Did it indicate in your mind that she was exhibiting a separate personality
No,
or acting as a separate person?
no.
You were asked about the demeanor change of the defendant in the interview, where in the beginning she's making lots of eye contact, perhaps even almost flirting with you. How would you attribute her demeanor at the beginning?
Conversational, I would even say hopeful on her part that she might be able to provide me with a story that I might take away.
Potentially hoping to manipulate your involvement in the investigation.
Yeah, sustained, you can rephrase.
Sure. Any other indicators for you as to what she may have been trying to get done there?
Yes, as I told her throughout, she was more concerned about what I was thinking than telling me what was happening. And she continued to do that throughout the interview. And I continued to admonish her to just tell me what she knew, not what she thought I was thinking.
Okay. You were asked at the very end of the cross-examination, did you come out empty-handed in this interview? Did you actually get useful information out of this interview?
Yes.
Can you tell the jury what useful information you got out of it?
Well, Letecia continued to exhibit no concern for Gannon as she did in the phone calls with Al. Anytime I would try to speak with her about Gannon, an 11-year-old being missing, however I could phrase that, she would turn it back around to herself. Even at the end, she was saying about, instead of him being found, it's her being exonerated and people would be sorry. Everything focused around her. And that's why her referencing her in the third person was not a surprising thing to me. As far as coming out empty-handed, her not being able to articulate a last image of Gannon was very indicative that image was awful. And I told her that multiple times. So to me, I didn't come away with a confession, but I came away with more of a certainty that something really bad had happened to Gannon and that she had witnessed it. As you saw, I probably asked her 30 times, maybe more, about her last image and gave her multiple outs. And the other thing that she kept not wanting to accept is that this was an accident. And normally in a case like this, a person who has last been with a loved one, whether it's accident or something homicidal, they will accept accident, and she would not accept that.
And then what about demonstrating her ability to recall? Were you able to develop that as well?
Her ability to recall,
information?
yes, anything that was not inculpatory towards the disappearance and homicide, she could recall easily. Dates, times, movements, homework, those sorts of things. It was pretty easy for her to articulate those.
Was it your perception that she was refusing to recall data as to what actually happened to Gannon?
Yes.
Was that helpful towards the investigation?
Yes.
Were you able to develop information about her intellect, her ability to communicate and that sort of thing?
Yes.
And why is that helpful towards the investigation?
That she is a articulate, intelligent, perceptive, and intuitive person. And that also helped her evade law enforcement while we as a team were trying to find out what happened to Gannon. while she was even still in Colorado. So just seeing her organized thought patterns there and how adept she was at shifting and deceiving and using some sort of alternative mechanism, it showed us that she was able to carry out what we thought she was able to carry out, and that is hide Gannon when there were multiple people looking for him.
What about the, her lack of any prior mental health concerns? Was that helpful towards the investigation?
Yes,
Why?
because we saw that she knew what she was doing. And we saw that even in her own words, she made this a 3-day ordeal, saying it started on Saturday, it went through Sunday, and there was all sorts of planning and premeditation involved, whether it's the call in to the school or not using her phone, using Gannon's phone. She explained to us that this was a prolonged event.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have.
Do any of the jurors have any questions for Mr. Grusing? Looks like we have one. Just write it down, pass it forward. Just one. Okay. Council approach, please. Back to this case. With that, if I can have everyone ready to go at 10:35, we should be able to start at that time. All rise for the jury, please. Thank you. May all be seated. Record should reflect the jury has left the courtroom. Is there anything we need to take up outside the presence of the jury at this point in time?
No, Judge. What time did you say to come back?
10:35.
Okay.
Defense, anything from defense? Mr.
Guys.
Salini or Mr. Cook?
Nothing.
Okay, court will be in recess. Thank you.
All right.
They just left it in their seats, okay. Let's go ahead and bring the jury in.
It's actually 7. Change this.
What?
All rise for the jury, please.
You guys figure it out. You do them first. I'm open. He doesn't.
Everybody okay? Thank you. You may all be seated. Court will recall 20 CR 1358, People versus Letecia Stauch. Record should reflect the jury is not present in the courtroom. Prosecution, call your next witness, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. We would call Special Agent David Donati. And while Mr. Donati's walking up to be sworn in, we've already put People's Exhibits 281 through 289 in the witness stand. They're photographs.
Sorry, Special Agent Donati, if you would raise your right hand, please, sir. Do you swear affirm the testimony after this man will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Go ahead and have a seat in the witness stand. Please watch your step as you step into the stand.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning. Doing fine.
Thank you. Good. Will you please introduce yourself to the jury and then spell your name for the record?
My name is David Donati, spelled D as in David, Onati. I'm a special agent with the FBI.
How long have you been with the FBI?
For 12 years now.
What are your responsibilities with the FBI?
Well, I've worked in a lot of different places. Currently, I work in the Minneapolis division doing criminal investigations. I started off my career in Lander, Wyoming, which is an RA or resident agency on the Wind River Indian Reservation. I spent 3.5 years there, and then I came to Colorado Springs and spent about 5 years here.
What were the years that you were in Colorado Springs?
2015, probably from April 2015 to September of 2020.
All right. What kind of cases have you investigated?
I've done a multitude of things, everything mostly in the violent crime aspect, everything from bank robberies to missing persons, homicide investigations, kidnappings, bank robberies.
Okay. What kind of training do you have that allows you to be a FBI agent?
To be an FBI agent, you attend the New Agent Academy, which is about 20 weeks at Quantico, Virginia. There we learn a series of different things, everything from interviewing to collecting of evidence to all the other duties that a special agent does. I've also attended other training during my service with the FBI, which is helps you to be better at your job and continuing training as collecting evidence and interviewing people.
As it relates to the case that we're here for, how did you become involved in the investigation into Gannon Stauch's disappearance?
Early on in the investigation, we were contacted by the El Paso County Sheriff's Office about a missing juvenile, and they asked our office to assist. And at the time, I was assigned as the case agent to help with that assist.
Did you at some point assist removing some items from a VW Tiguan?
Yes, I believe that was on February 7th of 2020.
So let's talk about the Tiguan, at least as far as you knew it. Did you understand that to be associated with the defendant in the case?
Yes, I understood it to be the vehicle that that she owned and that she drove.
What were you tasked to do as relates to that particular vehicle?
On that particular vehicle, I was tasked to assist. I had other people that helped me collect the what is called the telematics system from the vehicle. And that's several different components that has the ability to store data of the vehicle while it's being operated.
Specifically, what kind of data were you looking for or hoping to get out of the telematics?
Well, every vehicle is different. Every manufacturer is different. But we do know that these systems do store everything from dates and times to actual GPS coordinates. And some vehicles do also store things like when the vehicle was in motion, when the vehicle was stopped, different systems on the car running, things like that. So like I said, depending on what that vehicle manufacturer and that data consisted of, it can tell you a lot. And some vehicles, it doesn't tell you much.
What does that process look like, removing the telematics from a vehicle?
So the telematics systems can be stored in several different places. There is items that are called the infotainment system, the electronic control modules that store this information. In this particular vehicle, there were 3 different items that we were looking for, and most of those are contained in the dash or under the dash somewhere.
Were you able to find those particular items for this particular vehicle on that February 7th date?
We did. We collected 3 different items from the vehicle, and that involved removing some sections of the dash to get to those.
Do you yourself then analyze those components to get this data that you're looking for or hoping to get?
No, that is then what I do is I collect those components as evidence. I enter them into our computer, and then I put them in FedEx shipping and ship them to Virginia, our headquarters, where the experts can then analyze the data.
Okay, is that what you did in this case?
I did.
So I want to direct your attention to the photographs that I put on the desk there in front of you. It should be People's Exhibits 281 through 289. Do you see those?
Yes, I do.
Will you please flip through those and then let me know when you're done looking at them?
I'm done.
Do you recognize those photographs?
I do.
What are they of generally?
So the photographs of the Volkswagen Tiguan that I believe to be owned and driven by the defendant, it was located in the El Paso County's vehicle bay where they store their evidence.
And are those photographs fair and accurate representations as to what you saw and in the removal process of this infotainment center?
Absolutely, yes.
Sorry.
I actually took these photographs as we removed them from the vehicle.
All right. Your Honor, at this time, I'd move for admission and permission to publish 281 through 289.
Defense,
No objection.
281 through 289 will be admitted. Are you
Thank
good?
you. We're connected back over here now, Judge. In just a moment, we're going to be projecting 281 up behind you. And just as a housekeeping matter, there should be a pointer there in the witness box and a telescoping pointer
Okay.
of some kind. You can either use that to point at the photograph itself, or you can just describe it by looking at the photo in front of you.
Okay.
Either one that you want to use. So we've got 281 up behind you. So let's look at the left side first. That's what looks like a shipping label. What is that?
That is exactly what you said. It's a FedEx shipping label where I package the items, use the FedEx computer system and entered the information on where I wanted to send it to. And I believe the date on that was February 10th, if that, it's hard to see on the screen, but it's the shipping date.
And it's kind of awkward the way that we've got to do this. So if you stand up and, oops, go back, please. If you stand up and are talking about what's in the photograph, just make sure that our furthest jurors can hear you. The microphone doesn't pick it up very well.
Sorry about that. So this is the shipping label that I used, and I believe the date was February 10th when I shipped it out.
Is it typical to collect items and then ship them out a couple of days later?
It is. One, I have to enter everything into the computer. That document has to be signed by my supervisor before I get the numbers, which are our tracking, our evidence tracking ability. So sometimes that takes a day or 2 days. Then I can package it up and send it out for FedEx.
How is it stored in the meantime?
Our facility is a controlled storage for evidence collection.
Is there any opportunity for the data that's on these devices to be altered or changed while you're waiting that shipment process?
No, there's not.
Okay. And then on the right side of People's Exhibit 281, is that the vehicle?
Yes, this is the 2019 Volkswagen Tiguan that I believe the defendant to be driving.
Was that belief based off of information that you had gathered during the course of this investigation?
It was.
Right, 282? What's in 282?
In this picture, we're more centered on this, the glove compartment area. And this would be the information electronic control module that will be removed. It sits right here. It has kind of a plastic cover, but once we remove it, I think there's another photograph of that.
When you're going through this process, are you basically just gaining access to the thing and then unplugging it and pulling it out?
Yeah, there's basically that's it. In some situations, like around a display module, there's molding that comes on everybody's dash that is popped out or removed. It's usually in by clips. Every once in a while, there's a screw or something like that that needs to be removed.
And then just so that we're understanding what's happening in this photograph, why does it appear that there's white powder on everything in there?
This vehicle had gone through a previous evidence collection, and I forget what the name of that is, but that's like a luminol.
Blue Star?
Is Blue Star.
Okay.
That's used to under lights to detect evidence of other types of evidence like blood or other things like that.
So is that basically just the residue of the Blue Star, what it looks like once it dries?
It is.
Okay.
Yes.
283?
And this box here, the front is what you saw in the other picture would be on this side of this silver box. And then all the cables come like very similar to a computer component. They can be unplugged and pulled out.
Did you in fact unplug this unit and pull it out? And that's one of the things that was shipped off to Quantico, Virginia?
Yes.
All right. 284?
And this is the item sitting on the bench top just to get a better focused picture of.
Same item that was in,
Same item that we've just talked about.
okay, perfect. 285?
This is the infotainment display. This is usually on vehicles where your radio is seen, or if you have a backup camera, things like that. So this piece that is removed here was the venting above it, and the piece that we are collecting as evidence is this display system. You see a knob right here.
Okay. 286?
This is the back of that unit. The face would be facing the gear shift right there.
So is that on the face that's sort of facing down towards the gear shift, or is that basically that touch screen that's in a lot of modern cars?
Exactly. It's a touch screen that, like I said, usually allows you to change the radio or do the air conditioning, a lot of other features. Some of them have mapping systems, things like that.
287?
This is a little bit harder to see, but this would be the emergency call module. It is located inside the dash behind the steering wheel.
Okay.
You'll see a better picture when we actually get it out.
288?
And this is that same item, the emergency call module.
So that comes out of the left side of the dashboard, left of the steering wheel?
It comes out of I couldn't tell you exactly which side of the steering wheel from memory, but yes, it's the left side, it's the driver's side of the vehicle, kind of back behind the steering wheel. So you had to remove some components of the dash to get to it.
And then should be 288, that's up there now, so let's look at 289.
And this is that same item on the table where you can see it a little bit better.
Okay, you can go ahead and sit back down. So tell the jury, you mentioned that this will go into a temporary storage at your facility and then you will package it up to ship it. How do you ensure that what you're shipping and what is received is the same thing?
Good question. We have several ways of doing that. We have an evidence tracking form that goes with it that talks about who handled that product. But the items itself actually get packaged inside a box. It gets the red evidence tape over the top so that during shipping, there's anybody that would tamper with it, that tape would be ripped, the box would be open. So we can say that if it gets there and that tape is secure, that the item was not tampered with during shipment.
Once an item gets analyzed, do you know what happens with the data that may or may not come off of these units when you ship them off to Quantico?
Whenever that evidence is finalized and they get some information off, they would then send it back to us in a similar manner. It would be packaged with red evidence tape and put in FedEx and sent back to us.
If there is location data that's included in the data that's pulled off of that, is that made available to other members of the FBI to potentially map that information?
Yes. So when they pull that information off, they can send it to us. That helps us because we're in the middle of an investigation. And as soon as we can get that information, it definitely helps us quicker. A lot of times we get information sent via email or something like that. It would show us data points or GPS coordinates that we could plot on a map on a computer system and overlay it with like something that you'd be familiar with is like Google Maps with different points plotted on it.
Did that happen in this case where information came back from Quantico with location data for this particular vehicle?
It did. It came back relatively quickly, but that information is kind of raw data, and they tell us that it's not has not been certified or verified yet. So they tell us to look at it and use other means to try to corroborate that information. But I did get the data points early on in the investigation.
Did you give that information then to Special Agent Kevin Hoyland to go through that mapping process that you just described?
Yes, I did.
And do you know whether that was successfully done or not?
Yes, it was successfully done.
Okay. Your Honor, may I have just a moment?
May-
That's all I have.
No
Cross-examination?
question- No questions, Your Honor.
Do any of the jurors have any questions for Special Agent Donati? No? All right. Thank you, sir. You may step down.
Thank you.
Prosecution, call your next witness, please.
We'll call Special Agent Dwight Falkowski. I'm going to place this on the witness stand. Go ahead and pull those photos out.
Okay.
Aaron, before Mr. Falkowski takes the stand, would it be possible for defense and I to approach just briefly?
Oh, sure. Right. Agent Delkowski, if you would raise your right hand, please, sir. Step on up a
Yeah,
little
you
bit
can come
more.
right up in here.
It's all right. You swear affirm the testimony about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Go ahead and have a seat in the witness stand. Please watch your step as you step into the stand.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. Will you please introduce yourself to our jury and then spell your name for the court reporter?
My name is Dwight Falkowski. Last name is spelled Falkofske.
Mr. Falkowski, who do you work for?
I work for the FBI.
What do you do for the FBI?
I work as an automotive forensic specialist, and I want to expound on that.
Yes, please.
So that involves taking parts from vehicles, cars that have been that are brought to us, and we go in and find the data inside the vehicles, and we extract the data and then recraft it into a format that's human readable, so we can find out stuff that the car has contained, such as location data or phones or devices that have been connected to the car and the data associated with those things.
All right, so what kind of training allows you to do that job?
I'm an electrical engineer by a bachelor's of science from Virginia Tech. I have other items on my CV that I could put out for you for FBI training if you'd like.
Sure, yeah, so let's start with that, the FBI training.
Okay, let me pull out my CV.
Okay.
Okay, with the FBI, I've taken DEMS training, that's Digital Evidence Management Systems, digital evidence handling, legal ethics training, CDART mentorship and proficiency testing. That is a specialized internal thing. A little explanation there is previously I worked for the FBI as a contractor that allowed contractors to handle evidence in their facility. And also I have testified as an expert witness now twice.
Okay. How long have you, you said, I think, an electrical engineer. How long have you been an electrical engineer?
My degree was from Virginia Tech in 1992.
Okay. What's your investigative experience? How many different investigations have you been involved with?
More than I can contend with at the moment. I have an estimate on my CV. Like, one moment.
Sure.
Let's see. I've listed over 70 devices that I've examined since 2018.
Okay. What kind of devices have you examined? And I'm not asking you to give us an exhaustive list, but just a generalized idea of what kind of devices that you've worked on in your role as an FBI agent.
Okay, I'll give you the primary two pieces that I typically see from vehicles. And one is the infotainment system, which is the center portion of your car that provides you with information about, like, if you're navigating or what music you're playing, that hardware. Also, another piece of hardware that we pull from the cars is a telematics device. This is a piece that typically talks back to the corporation that's providing connected services.
Okay. And you mentioned that you've testified as an expert witness. What jurisdictions were those expert witness testimonies provided in?
Both were in South Carolina.
Okay. Was that with the Alex Murdaugh case?
Yes, one with the Murdaugh case.
Okay. What was your assignment back in 2020? Same assignment as what you're testifying to today?
Clarify, please.
What was your assignment with the FBI in 2020?
In 2020.
Yes.
So 2020, I was doing the same work as a contractor with
Okay.
the FBI.
Okay. Did you have an occasion to work on some devices as it relates to the Gannon Stauch investigation?
Yes.
Before I do that, Your Honor, at this time, I've moved to qualify this witness as an expert witness in automotive forensic specialists.
Defense?
I don't have an objection, that's fine.
All right, the witness will be so qualified. Go ahead.
So as it relates to the devices that you examined in this case, what devices did you look at?
There were 4 pieces that I examined, and I have, um, I don't have the list of them in front of me, but there were 4 pieces from the vehicle. I knew that some pieces that we had worked on uh, were not valuable in extracting data from, but there were, and one in particular, the um, uh, infotainment system from that car was probably the primary one we looked at.
Okay. When you say 4 pieces, does that mean that one of the modules had an SD card in it or something like that, that expanded it out to 4?
No,
Okay.
the 4 physical pieces, and it should be listed in the hardware list or on the in the evidence that I've provided, the digital evidence, derivative evidence. There are 4 listings there, and it shows explicitly on each piece what was provided, and it includes pictures.
Okay. And then as it relates to your work, did you have 2 different efforts towards gathering this information? One that was an initial uncertified basically result, and then a second that was more in-depth?
Yes, so I'll go ahead and explain the situation around that, if that's okay.
Yes.
So it came to us initially as an active search for a missing child, and in which case we prioritized something like that and put it, we're working on that now. And so when we initially got the pieces in, it was from a vehicle that we had not previously looked at, so we had no idea of what it might contain or the data in it. So we provided a very fast analysis on the system at that point and was able to extract location data out of that vehicle. But then part of our standard processes, when we develop tools to get data off of vehicles, we have to validate them later, which requires a much more exhaustive effort to show that the data that we're putting on a system is exactly what we're getting off. So when I say this data point represents the vehicle in this location, that is accurate. So it took us an additional approximate year or so to finish that validation process.
Okay. So when you have that initial effort that you get that unvalidated data, what did you do with it, that unvalidated data?
We provided it as preliminary data back to the field.
Okay. And then that secondary effort that you mentioned was roughly a year down the road from that first effort. Was that data, did that basically validate all the data, including the data that you had sent the first time?
That's correct. And there were also, I believe there was a little bit of additional data provided as we found more data on the system over time.
Okay. Was there any discrepancy in the data? And what I mean by that is that the initial data that you provided early on, was any of that data that you provided to the investigation proven wrong based on the secondary release of data?
No, that data proved accurate.
Okay. So when we're talking about the item that was given fruitful information towards this investigation, what was that particular device?
The head unit, there was 4 devices. I believe it's the item that ends with 04. Is that
Well,
what you're looking?
you're the expert. I can't,
Okay, I
I
have to
don't,
look
I
at
don't
the
know
list
where
of-
it came from. All I
Okay.
know is it magically appears.
All right, give me a moment. Let me pull out some
Okay.
records and so I can find what we're looking for. Okay, I do have the list here.
Okay.
So you want me to go through all 4 pieces or just this one?
Well, so let me ask you just a clarifying question before we go
Okay.
down that path. Did you look at all of the items that you received from Colorado Springs to see if there was going to be any useful information on all of them?
Yes, we evaluated each piece.
And then through that evaluation, did you determine, based on what you've already said, that only one was going to provide any useful location data?
That's correct.
Okay, so let's talk about that one then.
Okay.
What particular item are we talking about that provided useful location data for this investigation?
Okay, it was the information ECM, that's electronic control module, basically the head unit that I explained before, from a 2019 Volkswagen Tiguan.
Who did you receive these items from?
From our internal evidence control facility.
Okay, but when you get it from your internal evidence control facility, can you tell like what case it's being sent from?
The case number is with it, yes.
Okay. And can you verify that it belongs to a Volkswagen Tiguan that was seized in Colorado Springs as opposed to, let's say, Seattle, Washington?
Yes, we have a chain of evidence maintained in the digital evidence management system.
And the information that we're talking about here, was that in relation to this specific case that we're having you testify on?
All right, sorry, say one more time.
The evidence that we're talking about here, the
Yes.
location data that you were able to pull, can you verify that that information relates to our case that you're testifying in today?
Yes.
Okay. So tell the jury, how do you get the information off of this electronic control module head unit?
You want to go into specifics?
Yeah. Tell the
Okay.
jury how that works.
I'm going to pull out my notes from that. Okay, when I'm processing the evidence, this is what we did to this particular piece of evidence. We first labeled the evidence with the evidence item number and took photographs of it in its state as received. Then we disassembled the specimen, removed the circuit boards, and removed some of the memory flash chips from the circuit board that was inside. Oh, and from the flash chips, then we were able to read those flash chips using a tool so that we would have what was a binary image provided that represents the data that was inside those flash chips. Now that data is in a digital format, readable by computers and not necessarily understandable by humans. And so this is where our processes continue.
So let me break in there just so that we're understanding.
Okay.
When you say that you pull a chip off and then you read it, do you mean that you're physically looking at it and reading information off of it?
We have specialized tools that access the chip and can read the chip in its proper protocols to be able to pull the data off correctly.
And were you able to successfully do that in this particular case?
Yes, for 2 chips.
For 2 chips off of this electronic control module circuit board?
That's correct.
Okay. Do you then look at the data before you send it back to the investigative arm or area?
Yes. So this case, at this point in the stage, you've only got a binary image with no understanding of what the data means.
Okay.
And so there was processing performed at this point.
So tell us about the processing.
Okay. So part of this is we were able to extract logical file systems from the image. And from the logical file systems, we combed the files that we found for information that might be related to location of the vehicle, because that was stated as an item of interest. And from that, we found, one moment. We quickly found that there was some location data available in some computer logs that were on there in a textual format that were very easy to access, which allowed us to quickly, within 1 day, write a parsing tool that would go out and pull that data from those logs. And that data was represented with coordinates and timestamps.
And when you say coordinates, do you mean like GPS coordinates?
Yeah, geocoordinates.
Geo coordinates?
Yeah.
When you get those geo coordinates out of that log that you're describing, what do you do with it?
So we prepare it into a format that is usable for us humans. I can give you a coordinate, but then you'll have to go out and type those coordinates into a thing like Google Earth to be able to see them. So we take that and provide, the parser takes the information and puts it into a file that you can just throw into Google Earth. It's called a KML file. And that file will automatically populate the locations and times of the vehicle on a map.
Okay. So how do you get that information back to the originating investigative region?
So in this case, we also provided let me just add there, because of the nature of the search, we went ahead and looked at some of the data and provided a PDF as well, along with the KML file to say, here's some points of interest you may want to go look at. And that was, I'm just seeing which method was provided back. It was provided back to the field I believe that was over electronic communication.
Okay. Do you know who you provided it to?
So I wrote down here the case agent, which I guess at the time that might have been Donati.
Okay, so Special Agent David Donati?
Yes.
Okay. What day did you provide that to him? Do you have that information?
I have the date that I had the review. February 12th, 2020.
Okay. And then is it common for field agents to then potentially give that information to other potential experts, FBI or not FBI, to then do some sort of mapping with this data that you're providing?
Absolutely. It's their call what they do with the data.
Okay. The should be up there on the desk with you. I put the exhibit envelope. Should be People's Exhibit 291. Do you see that?
This thing?
Yep.
Okay.
You see that? Do you recognize it?
Is there something inside I need to look at?
Well,
But-
do you recognize it or not?
I do not.
Okay. Do you remember, did you put the information on some sort of a card, or SD card or something like that?
I put on an SD card, yes.
Okay. The information that was contained in that SD card, was that provided back to the field to Special Agent David Donati?
That was provided, yes, at a later time.
Okay. How was that provided to him?
Okay, so that, as I was speaking earlier, we had about a year's time pass where we provided the validation of the data. So when our evaluation of the whole process was complete to our satisfaction, then we provided this evidence in totality and in confidence back to the field through the SD card.
Okay. And so what we have in People's Exhibit 291, is that the information that you provided back to the field based on your extraction of the data from those modules?
I see it says SD card, but I don't see the SD card here. So
Okay. So do you remember prior to you getting on the stand, me asking if you'd had a chance to look at this item or?
I looked at the SD card and I initialed the SD card. Is that not available?
Okay, so that should be in that envelope.
In
there.
the envelope.
Yes,
Okay, I just
yeah.
wanted to check.
There should be some scissors there to your left.
Okay. I will open the envelope.
Yep.
There we go.
Is that what you looked at?
That is what I looked at.
Okay.
This is the evidence we provided.
All right.
I did not recognize the package it was in.
Okay. So is that the same SD card that was provided in this investigation that contained that location data that you sent back to the field investigator, Special Agent David Donati?
Yes.
Is it fair and accurate representation of that data that you recovered from that electronic control module back on February 12th of 2020?
Yes. I verified it just shortly before
Okay.
this meeting.
Your Honor, at this time, I move forward mission of People's Exhibit 291.
Defense?
Can I ask just what your, a couple questions?
On authenticity? Yes,
The
go ahead.
exhibit.
Go ahead.
Yes. Special Agent, hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Just quickly, this SD card information you have, is this the verified stuff that came approximately a year after February 2020?
That's correct.
Okay, this isn't the initial.
This is not the preliminary data.
Okay,
It does include the preliminary data that we provided at that time as well.
okay. And how is the preliminary data different from the final data that you got at a year later?
So the preliminary data was what we initially found during a compressed timeline to try to locate a missing child. And later on proved to be accurate in its totality. There were some potential additions to the data as we continued to process it over that year.
Okay. Were there any discrepancies or inconsistencies between the preliminary data and the final data that was published or released a year later?
No.
Okay. Your Honor, I don't have an objection.
Right, Exhibit 291 will be admitted. Mr. Allen, go ahead.
And that was the some of my questions, Your Honor.
Cross-examination, Mr. Cook?
No, Your Honor.
Do any of the jurors have any questions for Agent Falkowski? No? All right. Thank you, sir. You may step down.
Thank you.
We just, before you get down, we just put that SD card back. in that.
It is in the envelope, it is not sealed. Here's.
Council, approach for a moment. Right. Ladies and gentlemen, trials are sort of a dicey business. Sometimes witnesses go faster than you think, and sometimes they take longer than what you think. The good news and the bad news here is the same, which is these witnesses are going a little bit faster, which means that there's about 45 minutes that we would normally use that we're not going to. So what that means is that you're going to have a longer lunch. We will have all of these witnesses coming in at 1:30. So if you can come back or be back in the jury room at 1:30 and be ready to proceed at that point in time, we should be able to start on time. Again, do not discuss a case among yourselves. Do not discuss a case with anyone else. Do not do your own independent research about any aspect of your case. With that, all rise for the jury, please. You may all be seated. Record should reflect the jury has left the courtroom. Is there anything we need to take up outside the presence of the jury at this point in time? Prosecution?
Judge, just to expand a little bit on that issue as far as witnesses, just looking ahead a little bit. So we've got two witnesses scheduled to finish out today, Judge. They're local witnesses. And then our next witnesses are, I think, not available until tomorrow morning. We have three witnesses lined up for tomorrow morning. One of which is Dr. Grimmett, who now lives in Hawaii. I think flew in maybe. Okay, she flew in at 6 a.m. this morning. Special Agent Kevin Hoyland from the FBI is from the East Coast. He's actually flying in today. I'm not sure exactly what time he gets in. And then Dr. Moore from the jail is where she used to work. She does no longer works there, I don't believe. Is that right?
She's in Kansas.
She lives in Kansas now.
Okay.
And just along those same lines, we've got what appears to be 7-ish witnesses left, Judge.
Okay. Okay. Well, if we have some holes or some gaps here and there, I mean, you guys have done a good job in being efficient and moving things along. So I think we're ahead of schedule, and I understand when we get towards the end of trial, that's usually where the holes start to appear because you've got a limited number of witnesses that you're trying to get to rearrange and schedule. So I get that.
Yeah.
Is Dr. Grimmett the only one that you're going to call from CMHIP, or are you
No,
Torres or Gray?
Torres is also from CMHIP.
And you're going to call her?
I believe so, Judge.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
And then just for scheduling, we initially thought about bringing Dr. Lewis in to testify on Friday, but based upon the district attorney not making sure they're gonna be done before then, we pushed her back, flying in this weekend. The idea that she'd be testifying on Monday.
Okay. So it's possible that
We
Friday
have
may be a
bit
down
of-
day.
We may have Friday afternoon.
Well, we can,
Not out, but I don't know.
we can talk about jury instructions, see where we are then. We ought to have some idea. We ought to be pretty close because it sounds to me like most likely will be done sometime next week. That's fair?
Yes, I would say that's very fair.
Okay. So we can talk about jury instructions on Friday and see where we are. They look to be in pretty good shape, frankly. Mr. Tellini, can you get me a theory of defense by Friday?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, if I could have Thursday, because I've been
Yep.
kind of cruised through them, but I haven't looked at them.
Sure.
specifically, so I'll have any defense instructions or any other
Right.
instructions from the defense by Friday.
Yeah, just give me some idea so that, okay. Okay, then we will see everybody at 1:30 this afternoon. Thank you.
All rise.